afternoon. At the tone, Pacific Daylight Time will be 5, 4, and 30 seconds.
What? Oh my God, we're having an earthquake. Wait a minute. Hold on. Can you feel that? Yes, I sure can. Okay, this is interesting. There go the lights. Oh.
We are here with Sherry Talmage at the Santa Cruz Library. It is August 15th, 2019, and we're here to talk about the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, so how would you describe your relationship to Santa Cruz? Have you always lived here?
I have not. I've been here for 41 years, and I picked Santa Cruz. I was raised in Southern California, and I knew I wanted to live by the beach when I was about 10 years old. I knew I didn't want to live near by the beach, and I came up here to go to school at Berkeley, and when I finished Berkeley, I went back to Orange County because I foolishly fell in love just before I left there. And when that relationship ended after a couple of years, I had like 2 weeks vacation from my job. And so I went and visited all of my friends who lived within, walking distance of the beach between here and Bellingham, between Orange County and Bellingham, Washington. So basically the whole length of California and Oregon and Washington. Bellingham's about 45 minutes south of the Canadian border. And so, Santa Cruz is one of the last spots that coming back this way. And what I loved about Santa Cruz was that it's about as far north as you can go where the beach, you can guarantee, gets hot in the summertime, which is what I was used to in Southern California. So I'm quite spoiled. My happy place is between, 65 and 75 degrees. And so what I loved about Santa Cruz is it had all of the amenities like when I lived in San Francisco and Berkeley. All those things were relatively just as easy to get to for me, but I had the beach, and that was my disappointment in San Francisco and Berkeley is there's just no warm beach anywhere to be found. Maybe at Stinson Beach you get between two sand dunes for like a half an hour, you might get warm. But I really, I really missed having a beach that gets hot in the summertime. So this is as far north as I could go where it would still be warm, and as far south as I could come and still have a more cosmopolitan kind of environment. The university does that for me here. So
you've lived here for a couple of years.
41 years, yeah.
All right. So can you describe what you were doing when the earthquake hit?
Yes. I was working at the district office for Santa Cruz City Schools, which is right across the street from Holy Cross School on the top of Mission Hill. And so I was there, and I noticed it was 5 o'clock, and I had not remembered at 10 minutes till the call reminded my husband to go get this one's mommy at daycare. This little guy's mommy was in daycare at the Toddler Care Center in Live Oak, and we lived on 9th Avenue in Live Oak, and so it was just about a 10-minute drive. So we got charged a bunch of money if you were late. So I called them up and said, hurry and get there before they charge us any money. So I was just hanging up the phone from talking to him when the earthquake hit. So I was at my desk looking out the window towards the town clock when the earthquake hit. And my desk wasn't, and all my office furniture came from like a Sacramento big giant, I guess it's like they do an auction or something about all the cast off furniture, and this was some ex-military stuff. It was like solid steel and weighed a ton and ugly as sin, and so I immediately jumped under that desk knowing I would be safe, because I was in a brick building, so you need to know that I'm a fourth generation Californian, so I know all the earthquakes. They never scare me. I enjoy them actually, because they're so big and powerful. And I'm a very sensory-oriented person, so I just, I like roller coasters, and so I love earthquakes. Anyway, so I was underneath my desk, ready for the shaking to stop. And then while I'm under there and watching, I had a lateral file cabinet where the drawers, you put stuff inside instead of straight, so they're really wide. And there's 4 drawers, and none of them were latched because I did a lot of file work. I was the attendance and welfare officer, which means glorified truant officer, and social welfare kind of counselor for the school district. And so I had all these active cases I was working on, and so all I could think of is that, oh my God, this thing's going to tip over, right? And all my files will be scattered all over the floor, and I'll never get them straight again. And so I wanted so badly to jump out and push the doors so they'd latch. But I knew that's right, it would fall over and kill me. And my father would say, no, that can't be my daughter you found under there, because she knows better than to come out during an earthquake and do something stupid like that. And so all that stuff's right through my head, and so then it finally stopped, and while it was going on, my computer tumbled to the floor, but my secretary's computer had not yet. So as soon as it stopped, I jumped up and shut those drawers and took her computer and carefully put it down on the floor, and then I taped the drawers shut so that wouldn't happen. And then I ran around. The rest of the building had emptied. Everybody ran out when the earthquake first happened instead of getting under their desks. But I know you don't run out of a brick building during an earthquake. So I run around that whole floor. There was a law practice above us. We were on the ground floor. And so I ran around putting everybody's computer on the floor, right? So that they wouldn't tell me, because all I could think was the money these computers cost. And so then I just finished doing that. It probably took about 10 minutes maybe to do that. And then I went to the front door to walk out, right as everybody else was finally coming back in. It had been about 20 minutes ago going, you were in there the whole time, what's wrong with you? I said, you were out there the whole time, what's wrong with you? And anyway, so that was my experience. And since I'd locked down my office, basically, I left to go get my kid, who's her mom's big sister, who's about 7, and she was at daycare on the west side. And this one's mommy was in daycare on the east side. So I called my husband to get that one. And she was about 15 months old at the time when the earthquake hit, and the other one was 7 years old. And so I went driving through town. I must have taken Center Street, and so I wasn't right downtown. I was, Center Street, and I was driving, and that's when I noticed I was driving over fissures. Wow. In the street, and that's something I'd never seen in any earthquake before. I'd been in some big ones, but probably nothing as big as this one. But probably a 6.0 was the biggest one I'd been in before. And so I was really amazed at the fissures in the road. So that was my first thought, wow, this is different than before. And what I hadn't, right when the earthquake hit, right when the first shaking ended and I got out from underneath my desk, I stood up and I looked out the window, and I saw that there was this big red cloud of dust, like that drifted from around where the post office would be towards the town clock. And because I wasn't able to figure out what could be happening that way, all I could think of was that more stuff behind where the crepe place used to be, that hillside behind the Holy Cross mission had fallen down, right? But of course the dust was going towards downtown, so away from downtown. So part of your brain, that just shows I was in shock, it just shows I was in shock during that time. And so I was just trying to make sure that I wasn't going to get in trouble. Getting down to hit my kids. I stayed away from the exact downtown area, went that outside area, and had to go to the west side to pick up my oldest. And so I got her, and we went, and as we drove by coming back home, is when I saw what happened downtown. So as we were traveling back after I picked up my 7-year-old, and we drove through the downtown, that's where I could see, that everything had crashed. And so it was pretty, mind-boggling to see, cars smashed by all those bricks that had fallen on Pacific Avenue. So, it was pretty intense. I drove back, and we drove over the bridges, and, they all got replaced after the earthquakes. That was a little nervous to think about if they'd been damaged and we were driving over them. But anyway, so that was my big excitement of my life. It was the biggest earthquake I'd ever been into, and but I will tell you, it never occurred to me to leave. You know, it never, you know, never been afraid of the earthquakes, and we'd always, because like I said, I'm fourth generation. We've always practiced what you do during an earthquake, and always had our go kit and all that kind of thing. So
good. So you were relatively well prepared.
Yes.
Mentally,
and yes,
and physically.
Yes, but even though all that happens, what surprised me is you're still in shock, right? And you know, because you know, I look back now and see, like, when I was under that desk, I was driving back to get my daughter on the west side. My head started to hurt.
Oh no!
And then it was over here, and then back here, and then I realized that I'd been bashing my head on this steel desk. But I hadn't noticed it at the time, right? I had no clue that had happened until I was driving there and felt all these bruises on my head from being under that desk, because I don't remember hitting my head or feeling any of that stuff when it was happening. I was just watching that file drawer and my computer crash and going, whoa, this is crazy. So, yeah. I think that, you know, the real impact was afterwards, of course. And in our neighborhood, we got to know, it was one of those things that happen in life. You find out who your real friends are, and which relationships are really genuine, and I don't know how to explain it, but just authentic. Mm-hmm. And we lived in a neighborhood by Twin Lakes Beach there. And so we walked around to make sure, a lot of elderly folks lived there. We wanted to make sure everybody was okay, so we made sure everybody's, you know, gas was turned off and stuff like that. But like, there's two stores. We call it the Little Blue Store, which is now
Days.
No,
not Days.
Not Days.
Deeks.
It's Deeks. And then there's the L&L was a deli at the time, run by a Latino family, and they just gave like all their food away, you know, to everybody, because like all the refrigerators couldn't work. And so, you know, that was the first thing. It was like a big party. Everybody got this cool food for like 50 cents a sandwich. You could make it as big as you wanted. But just that kind of openness, and because the other extreme, like where I grew up in Southern California, you know, earthquake happens like that, that's when everybody jacks the prices up. So when you go to buy your batteries or your water or whatever, because you weren't prepared ahead of time, you get gouged. And so to see that none of that was happening here made me feel good. And to see how the neighbors, you know, looked out for each other. Like, people had barbecues, we cooked outside, because you have to cook all the stuff in your freezer, you know. And so that's what we did. And so that part of it was really, really nice. The way that pulled the local neighborhood together was really a wonderful experience. And so people that, you know, were on the block or two over that we'd never met before, because we went and knocked on every door, we met them, and, you know, some of them were, you know, people we never would have said hello to became some of our best friends after that experience. So that's one of those things that teaches you, I think.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, not the circumstances under which it happened, but the fact that it did happen.
Yeah, and that people were so warm and open and willing to share everything that they had, that everybody worked as a team, which is really nice.
Did the earthquake impact your life in any way afterwards? Was your house okay?
Well, our house was a rental unit, and it was originally like, you know, Live Oak was a big place that raised chickens, and so it was originally a chicken shack. And so it had single wall construction and no foundation. It was like a brick over here, or a brick there underneath a 2x4 or something. And so our house shook like crazy. None of the windows were ever right angled again, or the door, you know, we had to cut off about 6 inches on one side of the screen door we bought to make it shut in the doorway and stuff like that. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, our house was fine because of that, because it was just made of nothing and held together with nothing. And you could see holes through the wall where the wood had dried and shrunk. You could see holes, gaps in the wall. But our neighbors next door lived in this beautiful shingled 2-story house. They were on the top floor, and they just lost everything because they had it in glass and everything crashed, and and that didn't happen. Nothing fell out of our cupboards. It went crashing to the ground because, it just nothing was really secured. Yeah. So we were closer to the ground, so we didn't have that kind of impact. But my husband worked at Loudon Nelson Center, and it was closed down. They were, sort of Operation Central for the recovery effort. And so he got a commemorative brick from the downtown.
Oh, wow.
After the whole thing was over, because of his efforts there at Loudon Nelson Center, because we had to coordinate things like, the president coming to walk around and look at everything, and stuff like that. So that was, that was a unique story, I think, that my husband was there at Loudon Nelson Center. And Loudon Nelson Center and the downtown had just maybe 2 years previously been told that all those false fronts were not attached, and it was a huge earthquake risk. But the Downtown Business Association decided it was too expensive and refused to do it. But the city doesn't have that luxury because they can be sued. Right. And so they had shut down Loudon Nelson for, it'd only been open a few months before the earthquake. They'd shut it down and refurbished everything. And so it was one of the safest places to be. And when they shut it down because their whole roof wasn't attached to the rest of the building. They had discovered, and it used to be a school. It used to be Laurel Elementary School, part of Santa Cruz City Schools where I worked, and it had been donated to the city because it was too expensive to retrofit it for earthquake safety. Really? So we donated it to the city, and they turned it a community center because you're not there 8 hours a day. You don't have the same restriction. The school doesn't have kids in there 8 hours solid. So you have to have a school much stronger and much safer than that building. Wow. Because you're only there for an hour. So they figure the risk isn't as great, I guess. But so that was and none of that was, talked about or in the papers, that all of that mayhem and destruction and deaths could have been averted if the business associations had not decided it was too expensive and because no one was shut down for as long as it took to fix everything. Yeah, but we made sure to go shopping, and they put up the tents. We made sure to go do our Christmas shopping there. We usually don't do Christmas shopping very, very much. We usually make our gifts and spend our time volunteering and helping make sure other families have things. So. We never made a big thing of Christmas stuff. My grandparents who bought the kids everything they ever wanted, so I didn't just spend much on my own kids because they were so happy to do it. So anyway, so that was a big important thing to me, that we supported the downtown businesses and kept them in business as long as we could.
That's great.
During that transition.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I agree. Yeah, and the community pulled together for those businesses as well as a whole. We had events down there that were very well attended, and those tents were freezing in the daytime, and there were giant fat cords going everywhere, and wooden plank walkways to go over the wires and stuff strewn over the cement where we set up these shops and parking lots and stuff so people could still have their Christmas season. So. That was, another thing that makes me just appreciate Santa Cruz more. What else did I want to say? It was funny how I felt offended when it was called San Francisco's earthquake. And then quite surprised when we went hiking in Ice Cream Marks, and you could see where, it was so obvious where the epicenter was after. Reading about it and hearing about it, and we finally got up there, and so that was a unique experience to see that as well, and to be able to take the kids there as they were older. Yeah. You mentioned having been in California, your whole life, and you were familiar with earthquakes and things like that. Mm-hmm. So after the earthquake, do you still take precautions against natural disasters and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we just had a fire at our house, and everything was, we were fine, and we've relocated to Corralitos while they try to rebuild everything. But you jump up and you went out the door and you grab your medicine and your coat bag, and we had insurance, but we had renters who didn't have renters insurance, and they lost everything. And they had no recourse. There's, which is sad. That was something that I always had, because, like I said, I grew up here, and it's, it was like $100 a year. It's really not very expensive to have renters insurance, but it was hard to watch what that did to these young people that were living with me that just lost everything and didn't have anywhere with all to replace it. A computer, and one was doing school online, so they had to drop out for the semester, and so there's some big consequences when you don't prepare. And I just had one of those. We had a large family, so my dad kind of ran us like a military little group. It's like when you call, we're all lined up, and we always had at least 2 hours of chores every single day to do before school, and 2 hours of chores every single day after school. So we had, there's all these things that were just very normal for me, and it was surprising for me to find out as I grew up and hung out with more different people that wasn't how everybody lived. I'm surprised that people don't have their go bag ready all the time. They don't rotate their water and their canned goods and stuff like that to make sure that you have what you need when something like that happens. I also will never be in an all-electric home because of that. So you have gas and electricity. So if one goes out, you can eat. You have the gas. You can still cook something and eat it cold out of a can. So little things like that have just been a part of my life, and the fact that I've always had insurance. I've never not had insurance because of how these things I know can just destroy a family and everything they've built up.
Yeah. Is there anything that you experienced emotionally or spiritually during the earthquake?
I think emotionally was just the disappointment in the people that I didn't hear from, or that the kind of people who think that thoughts and prayers mean anything to anybody. When you're experiencing that, they don't. It's true that during, I have to say that during the post time, I do feel that positive energy when people, pray for you and lift you up. So I do think that stuff matters and is reassuring and such when you're trying to recover. But it's, people say, call me if you need anything. You're not going to. You're too busy trying to get from one day to the next. People, that's not how you help people. You help people by actually being there and showing up and saying, let me do your laundry, let me do this, let me, do your shopping for you this week or something like that. And so, just to know that you have to actually go out of your way and think of those things and offer those things, because people aren't going to ask you for those things. They're too busy just trying to make sure their kids have a place to sleep tonight and that their kids are feeling good. My Ola's had a much more emotional response to it. She's had anxiety issues ever since, and still has major anxiety issues. And her little sister was only 15 months old, not so much, So I think that had an impact. We had just seen Superman 2, where Lois Lane drives in the car and gets buried during an earthquake, and Superman turns the world backwards to go save her because he had to pick the school bus full of children to save instead of Lois. And that's what was running through my daughter's head as they were getting in the station wagon to drive home, and she's like 7. Well, the 9 and 10-year-olds, you're all about, braggadocio, and they're all talking about, things and making a joke out of the earthquake. And she was just terrified. She thought any minute that there was going to be a fissure open up and they'd be buried under, tons of dirt. And so that was something that I hadn't thought of, because I guess I didn't Well, she was only 7, but I didn't, I remember seeing, we had a giant flood, in Orange County in LA. It doesn't take much rain at all to create a giant flood because there's nowhere for the water to go. And I remember we were driving on a road and we stopped because it had been washed out. And I couldn't have been more than 5, and so that means my next older sister was 7. We were the 2 with my mom. We were allowed to crawl up to the very edge and see cars getting washed down this flood, and we saw a couple of kids who'd been playing near the water get pulled into the water. And from my perspective, it was interesting and sad. I mean, we want to save the kids. My mom said, you can't. There's nothing you can do. Right? The water's moving too fast and we're too far away. But for my older sister, who was about that same age, she's terrified her whole life. Every time she has to drive over a bridge, that's all she thinks about her whole life. So I think maybe it's just the age or something. But I worried that I hadn't prepared her as well as my father prepared me for those kinds of things, because to me it was just matter of fact. It wasn't something that came out of the blue that I never expected to ever happen. To me, I never felt immune from the real world. I didn't ever feel shielded from the real world, and so it was surprising to me that that I guess maybe I didn't prepare my own 7-year-old as well as I've been prepared. But so that's one of the emotional things I think that was an impact from that. Spiritually, like I said, just again be confronted with the kinds of people who show up and the kinds of people who don't. But that was pretty much it.
I think we touched briefly on this, but I just want to go back a little bit to it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think this impacted the Santa Cruz community?
Well, I will tell you this: it was a huge impact, and I think that I'm kind of a Pollyanna. First of all, so you should know that I make I find the good side of everything that happens, and I know a lot of people lost jobs and stuff because of what happened to the downtown area, and some of those people had to leave town and relocate, and others were able to hold it together until things got back together. But our downtown had been made into this garden mall in the 60s, and by the time my kids were little, like my 7-year-old didn't feel safe downtown by herself. A lot of dark corners, overgrown areas, and so parts of the downtown area were dark, and we've always had the homeless population here, and mental health clients that aren't served. Vietnam veterans were the biggest ones at that period of time, I think, that lived up in our mountains and were hermits and didn't connect with people very, very often. And so my daughter had been on her bike and been frightened by people downtown. And so I was, always with her and tried to raise her not to be afraid of people that look different than her, and speak in a way that doesn't make sense, that you just try to be more compassionate and understanding. But her anxiety, I think, takes over and doesn't allow for much of that to happen at the get-go. But it allowed us to completely redo the downtown. It's much more open and airy, and I think much more amenable to a larger amount of foot traffic now than it was able to do before. So it gave us the excuse and some benefits. It's just like my house that burned down, right? I'm going to have a new house now, right? And yes, I'm displaced and we've lost everything, but I'm living with this beautiful little grandson. What could be better than that? I get to have him every day in my life instead of just, when mom and dad want a date night or something. Yeah. And so that's just, how I operate in the world. So I don't see and don't choose to live my life on the negative side. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it allowed us to position ourselves better economically for the coming 21st century. that was my feeling that a lot of damage took place and our whole downtown changed because of that. And one of the other emotional things was weird is after we first cleaned up, I remember driving down, I couldn't remember what had been in that place. There was a hole there now. Even though I'd driven by it every day of my life for years and years and years, and could have told you with my eyes closed where everything was before the earthquake. After the earthquake, I had no idea what had been there before. It's like it just was erased from my brain. It was the weirdest thing. But I do think we're better prepared to diversify our economy for the 21st century. And so all the things that have happened, like even the 2008 economic downturn was also, again, gave us an opportunity to retool how our economy works, so that we're able better to take advantage of things like next space and things like that, to be more forward thinking and able to think outside the box, to be able to move forward and stay, just keep progressing, keep moving forward instead of looking backward and feeling sad for what's lost, looking at the opportunity it provides you for what's to come. And so I feel very strongly it was an opportunity for us. We got a lot of funding that helped us redo things, and so I felt it's been very, very positive. I feel the same way about this multi-use project we're trying to do downtown for the library. It makes me upset. We have a very open government process, and when these things start to happen, you have people that volunteer and they put in a lot of their hours and time to figure out what's the best for our community to move forward, and they do all that, and then after they go through 2 years of this process and start to bring it to the city council, then everybody goes, oh, what? No, I don't think that's right. Well, where were you 2 years ago when we started saying we were going to be doing this, And why weren't you finding out then what was going on? And why did you put your 2 cents in back then when we were still building these plans, instead of just, throwing rotten tomatoes at people? That's how it feels like to me. It just feels disrespectful and, kind of whiny-ish. To me. So when people complain at the end of the time period instead of at the beginning of the time period, and to take those that democratic right to have your 2 cents considered, when it just makes more sense to do it instead of when you just tear down and throw away everybody else's work and everybody's time. It just feels selfish and self-serving to me. It doesn't feel good. And so I'm hoping that the parts of our community that I appreciate so much, the artistic community that I used to have in Laguna Beach, was destroyed because people didn't do what Santa Cruz did. They didn't take control of their government and hold on to it and make the kinds of growth and changes that they felt would serve their community and their environment for the long term. Everyone's thinking about fast money because it's like here's right on Highway 1, and then it's a beautiful ocean community and a big artistic community. So it had all, people, there's a big playground area for LA stars back in the 20s and stuff forever. And it was this wonderful artistic, kind of crazy community like Santa Cruz is, and then got turned into this thing I don't even recognize when I go down there now. And that's another reason why I left Orange County and came here. And when I got here and I saw what was happening politically, I felt really good about it. I felt I could build my life here and feel like I could be a part of that community and an active part in that community my whole life, and not feel like such a minority like I was in Orange County. I was like 1 of 2%, I think, when the first vote to legalize marijuana happened. Oh. And I said, I can't be here with all these people who think this is such a terrible thing, but they're all going out drinking and crashing their cars and killing people and don't think that's a problem at all. Yeah. So, so I'm really, I picked Santa Cruz, and I'm glad that I did because of those things, and that it's still holding true no matter what's been thrown our way since then. So during all this time, I've never regretted my decision to be here.
That's great. A lot of the interviews that I've done, people mention the Cooper House and how devastated they were.
That was the saddest, I have to say, for me too. That was because we had so much music happening there and so much interactive artists that hooked up with each other and made these incredible street art performances. We had the Karamazov brothers became famous around TV, and they started off downtown Santa Cruz. So that that was a very magical place and time that was lost and not replaced. But you know, you look at what the Ma is now. That I never went there before, and now it's the center of our downtown community, and that feels good to me. That our public places are for the whole community and not just for a certain component of the community. And the Cooper House was like that. It was more for a component of the community, and now it feels like it's a more inclusive and broader community base, and that feels good too.
That's lovely. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
No, it's funny that this like surprised me when this came out of the blue, because I wasn't even thinking that this anniversary was coming up, you know, and but it was a big thing for my whole family, especially my in-laws who lived in Sacramento. You know, it was so nice to have the. You know, we did the Sentinel did the earthquake book when it came out, and we all bought those and sent all of our relatives. And you know, like I said, we have to commemorate Brick and stuff like that, and to look back and see what we've accomplished. That it was, I'll tell you, one thing I want to bring up is that they said it would take 10 years to rebuild downtown, and we didn't believe it, but it really did. And even then, you know, we've only now finally filled in the last few holes just in the last few years. So that was, you know, that's the thing. You really do have to plan, and you have to be thoughtful about the future. Yeah.
So, last closing question. What is it like to reflect back on that event 30 years later? I'm so, you know, kind of type A, goal directed, and it's another reason why I left Orange County in LA is because you know, when you're on the freeway, you know, then driving is a competitive sport. It's not like, and now that's finally happening here, which, you know, but the other reason why I picked Santa Cruz is you can get everywhere you need to go without going on the freeway. You just have to be patient. You know, some road hooks up to somewhere you can go without going on the freeway. And so I'm able to do that. You know, I had to make this commute from Corralitos now all the time, and I don't like it anymore. You know, that's why I left Orange County, one of the big reasons why I left Orange County. And but I've made my peace with by being able to, you know, take, instead of spending that time being on the freeway being angry at how many people were crowded on the freeway with me, I drive around by the ocean, through the mountains, and it's lovely. So, you know, it just matters, I think, so much on your attitude and your perspective on things, to be positive and uplifting, and that's another thing that makes Santa Cruz special. I feel it is. I don't know why, and I'm not going to try to guess what makes Santa Cruz so magical, but I feel it really is. I feel it's a very special place. I feel relaxed every time I drive anywhere, and as soon as I get over that hill and I get that first hit of ocean air, my whole body relaxes. I feel so much more comfortable and happy here, and I just feel so blessed that both of my daughters chose local boys, right? That they, you know, my oldest daughter met her husband in high school, but that they both decided to stay here. You know, so that also tells me it is really a special place. And I'm glad I found it, and I'm glad that my family is anchored here now. So I think it's got a great future for it, and I think I think that people listen to each other here, and they may not agree with each other, but hopefully they respect each other, and we won't have the kind of divisiveness that that tears apart communities. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your story with me, and with the community.